Welcome back to God's Business Playbook. And I'm your host, Kirby Ingalls. And today we're going to dive into some powerful lessons from Genesis chapters 6 through 9. Now, these chapters cover the story of Noah, the flood, and the renewal of humanity, and after the waters recede. But this is not just a story, and it's not so much a historical account, but it's a blueprint for leadership, stewardship, and trust in the midst of scarcity. In Genesis 9, after the flood, God speaks to Noah, telling him and his family to be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth. Well, this is the same command that God gave Adam, but this time it carries even more weight after the devastation of the flood, and Noah and his family are starting from scratch. Resources are scarce, and they're tasked with rebuilding and renewing Earth. This is where we start to see some of the key leadership principles come into play, and principles that we can apply directly to our own lives, business, and leadership roles. Let's talk about stewardship. In Genesis 9, Noah is entrusted with the responsibility to care for the earth and its creatures. The environment is fragile, and Noah's task is not just to survive, but to thrive by stewarding God's creation well. And this reminds us that stewardship isn't just about managing resources, it's about multiplying them in a way that honors God's creation. And as leaders, we need to ask ourselves, how are we multiplying what we've been given? Are we being responsible stewards of our resources, whether they're financial, relational, or even environmental? Are we thinking long-term, ensuring that our work doesn't just benefit us, but also contributes to the flourishing of other people? Next, let's talk about scarcity. The flood left Noah's family in a world of scarcity. But instead of seeing scarcity as a limitation, Noah embraced it as an opportunity to rebuild. Scarcity forces us to think creatively, to maximize what we have and to find new ways to generate growth. In leadership, scarcity just isn't about managing less. It's about seeing opportunities and challenges. And when resources are limited, whether it's time, money, or manpower, that's when true leadership is tested. So ask yourself this: how do I respond when faced with scarcity? Do I see it as an obstacle or as a chance to innovate and grow? Noah's story shows us that scarcity is an invitation to become more resourceful, to steward what we have even more. Now, this leads to the idea of multiplication. And I'm not talking about that thing that you hated in school as you were growing up. I'm talking about God's command to be fruitful and multiply. And this wasn't just about repopulating the earth. It was about multiplying the blessings and resources that God had provided for Noah. This meant taking a few resources left after the flood and turning them into something that could sustain future generations. And as leaders, we are called to multiply not just profits, but opportunities for others. Our work should contribute to the flourishing of the people and environments we serve. Multiplication, in this sense, is a sacred responsibility. It's about taking what God has entrusted to us and using it to create lasting positive impact. Finally, let's touch on trust. Genesis 9 introduces God's covenant with Noah, a promise that he would never again destroy the earth with a flood. The covenant included not just humanity, but all living creatures. It's a reminder that our work and leadership are part of a larger story, one where God is actively involved, providing and guiding. As leaders, it is easy to feel like everything depends on us. But Genesis 9 reminds us to trust in God's provision. And when we trust God's promise, we can lead with confidence, knowing that our efforts, when aligned with His will bear fruit. It allows us to step back, rest, and trust that God is sustaining the work that we are doing. So let's recap the leadership lessons of Genesis 6 through 9. Number 1, stewardship. We are entrusted with resources, and it's our responsibility to multiply them in a way that honors God's creation. True leadership considers the long-term impact of our actions. Number 2, scarcity. Challenges or opportunities. Scarcity forces us to innovate and become better stewards of what we've been given. And the third one here is multiplication. We are called to multiply not just for personal gain, but for the benefit of others. Leadership is about creating sustainable growth that lasts beyond ourselves. And finally, number 4, trust in God's provision. We are part of a larger story. God's promises give us the confidence to lead faithfully, knowing He is with us every step of the way. I want to thank you for joining me today on this episode of God's Business Playbook. These leadership lessons from Genesis 6 through 9 have a profound impact on how we view our roles as leaders. And not just in business, but also in life. And I encourage you to reflect on how you're practicing stewardship, responding to scarcity, and multiplying opportunities in your leadership journey. If this episode resonated with you, please subscribe to this podcast. Share it with others who are seeking to lead with integrity and purpose. And together that we can build a legacy of faith-driven leadership that honors God's creation, His plan for our lives. And until next time, remember, lead with stewardship, embrace challenges as opportunities, multiply blessings, and trust in God's provision. My name's Kirby Ingalls, and we'll see you next time.